We are live on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. So, whenever y'all pile on in here, hit me with your questions. I got two different cameras I'm looking at, which is why I'm like this. Ask your questions to large, angry science man and have them answered. And pray that your question is not stupid. How to reduce cellulite, lose body fat. Ladies, I got news for you. Cellulite is normal. It is normal. Normal. It's so normal that I'm going to shout it from the rooftops. Cellulite is normal. Normal. It's very normal. Now, if you want to reduce it, you do the same thing you do to lose body fat. You eat in a calorie deficit, you exercise, and you will reduce the appearance of cellulite. But as far as I'm aware, there is no process to specifically target it. But stop beating yourself up over it, because nearly every single woman has it. Even the models that you follow on IG that make you feel bad about yourself, if you get them with a little bit more body fat in the right lighting, they have cellulite too. So I know most of these women because they're in the same industry as me. I see them at trade shows. Almost all of them have it. Stop beating yourself up over it. Let's see. In Carbon Diet Coach, if we weren't in the green for compliant when we check in, should we click non-compliant even if we didn't gain or lose weight and we are in a reverse diet? If you were not compliant, you were not compliant, and you should not click compliant. Now, you can do whatever you want, right? So a lot of people will ask us, hey, Lane, or hey, guys, why don't you just have the app tell us compliance? Like, why doesn't it just say you were compliant or you weren't compliant and don't let us decide? Like, don't leave it up to us. Here's why. Because if we did that, then we have to put a cutoff somewhere. And no matter where that cutoff is, there would be people every week who would be angry because they'd be like, oh, I was only 0.2 grams of carbohydrate over and it told me I wasn't compliant. So can you please go in and edit my check-in? Can you please go in and edit my check-in? Sorry, people are trying to call me. Can you please go in and edit my check-in? No. So we leave it up to some of the discretion of the user. We show you what you logged, and you can decide if you're compliant or not. Now, we tell people, listen, if you're in the range for protein and calories, technically that's compliant. But listen, if you're not making progress and you are clicking compliant very liberally, maybe instead of blaming the app, it's time to look in the mirror and say, am I doing everything I possibly can? Because most people only pay lip service to their goals. If you want to find out if somebody really cares about their goals, watch their actions, because their actions will tell you what a priority is for them, because it's where they put their time. Logging and being consistent is part of that time. So anyway, long story short, I recommend trying to be more compliant if you want to click compliant. Let's see. Let's take a take a question off Facebook or YouTube. Good Lord. By the way, guys, if you're liking this, please hit me with some hearts, hit me with some likes. That will help us get seen by more people. Appreciate it. Hey, Lane, does what happened in the Biggest Loser study happen to people who also lost a lot of weight but at a more modest deficit? So the Biggest Loser study showed that even 6 years after massive weight loss, the participants of the Biggest Loser still incurred massive metabolic adaptation, like negative 500 calories per day, like reduction in their basal metabolic rate that persisted even though they had regained a ton of weight. If you ask me if somebody lost that much weight but with a more modest deficit, I don't know because I'm not aware of a study that looked at BMR on that. I would guess that if they did it more modestly, it wouldn't be quite so bad, but I can't say for sure. Is the carnivore diet really that bad? I tried it for a few months and noticed my digestion and other things improved. So here's the problem with people and not understanding like how to evaluate like what works versus what is best. If you're used to eating the standard American diet, which is a bunch of junk food and processed crap, and you switch to a carnivore diet, guess what? Anything, literally anything is better than the standard American diet. So people stop eating a bunch of junk and all of a sudden they're like, wow, I really feel better. No shit. You could do that while still eating vegetables and carbohydrates and other stuff to make your diet more diverse. Here's the tip. Just stop eating a bunch of junk. And some people specifically, if they have like sensitivity to FODMAPs or some different things in food, a carnivore diet is basically an elimination diet, which can help alleviate, at least in the short term, a few of those symptoms. However, for long-term digestive health, having fiber is a good thing, regardless of what Paul Saladino says with one cherry-picked study. Let's see here. What's up, Stephen? Erica from Facebook. I've been on a reverse for 10 weeks and was wondering when the app will tell me I'm done reversing and can switch to maintenance. I know this is very individual, but I'm feeling so fluffy and full all the time. So any signs I can anticipate? The app will tell you that you can switch to maintenance or fat loss whenever your predicted TDEE exceeds, or sorry, whenever your actual TDEE exceeds your predicted TEE. So basically, whenever the amount of calories you're able to maintain your weight on is at or greater than what it should be based on your lean body mass and body fat. Can you regain lost muscle after the age of 50? Yes. How many weeks of data does Carbon look at when it calculates your macros for a new week in a fat loss phase? If you're talking about changing goals, it looks at the last month because that's what your estimated TDEE is calculated based off. But if you're talking about week to week, usually we use a 3-week rolling average. Some of the questions are bad. No shit. But to be fair, most of the bad questions are because there's a lot of bad information out there. And unfortunately, it takes a lot more work to undo really bad information than it takes to spew it. Just look at Jason Fung's 2-minute and 47-second clip of him talking absolute nonsense, and took me a half-hour video to break down why it was nonsense. And even that was me abbreviating it. Are there particular diet plans to increase insulin sensitivity? You want to increase insulin sensitivity? Exercise regularly. Don't eat like an asshole. How do you maintain strength while dieting? Go slow, use diet breaks liberally, get a proper program, have the mindset that you're not going to lose strength. Because a lot of people are like, well, I know I'm going to cut, so I'm going to lose strength. And then lo and behold, they lose strength. Well, yeah, if you're like in your mind like, I'm going to lose strength, well, then you're going to friggin' lose strength. All right. Okay, here we go. Hey, Doc, my daughter is 8. For the last couple of years, she has refused to eat meat. What concerns would you have, and do you have any strategies to mitigate potential protein deficiency? Well, if it's just meat and it's not like eggs or fish or whatever, obviously those are great strategies. Dairy is great, wonderful protein source, very high quality protein. I'm sure we'll have anti-dairy zealots come in here and tell me how it's full of mucus. It's not. But yeah, dairy is a great strategy. Barring any of those, a protein powder can help. If she's completely vegan, if that's like the thing, then it becomes a little bit trickier. But I would say, some good plant proteins are like, if you can find it, a potato protein isolate. If not, a soy protein coupled with a pea protein would cover would cover most of your bases, or soy protein and a rice protein. Coming off a 2-week vacation, didn't track or weigh. When switching goal back to fat loss, should I use current or estimated metabolism? I would have it calculate new. Let's see here. Is it possible to lose weight in a reverse diet? Sure. But if you're looking to lose weight in a reverse diet, you're reverse dieting for the wrong reasons and you're going to fail. You need to accept and embrace the process of reverse dieting and accept that you may gain some weight, but it will hopefully help you lose fat more easily in the future. Okay, now you're going to get me on a rant. Do you have a recommended formula to determine max muscle potential? No, I do not, and you shouldn't give a shit. And here's why. Because every single person that I know of who has ever done anything worth a damn in strength sports or bodybuilding has not spent 1 iota of a second worrying about what their genetic potential is. Because guess what? Even if you know it, you can't control it. And guess what? Maybe like those genetic potential things are pretty inaccurate. And what happens if it tells you that you don't have good genetic potential? What, are you just going to quit? Like give up? Here's what it boils down to. People only want to do the work if they are guaranteed an outcome. I've got news for you, kiddies. Nothing is guaranteed in life. The only way you will get the outcome you want is if you put in the work. That's it. Period. But you have to be willing to, here's the rub. You have to be willing to do the work with zero guarantee of an outcome. Period. When I first got into this, people told me that I had terrible genetics. When I did my first bodybuilding show, my legs were trash. After 4 years of training my legs hard, they were trash. I had so many people told me I should quit. You should give up. Ended up winning a pro card, ended up winning a pro show, and had really good legs. And now people tell me, man, you got such great genetics. No, motherfucker, I worked hard for 20 years. I worked hard for 20 years. Through setbacks, through injuries, through frustration, through failure. And yet people told me my genetics were bad. Same thing when I got into powerlifting. I was terrible at squatting. I ended up squatting a world record. I squatted 668 pounds at 201.5 pounds body weight. After I had been training for over 10 years, I barely eked out a 500-pound squat. It would have been so easy for me to just go, yeah, this just isn't my thing. If I had not emptied the tank, I never would have done that. So I don't give a shit what my genetics are, and neither should you. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm not actually mad. I'm just a very passionate dude, so I apologize. And I don't want you guys to like limit yourselves. I see so many people, they limit themselves because they're like, oh yeah, you know, I'm just not made for this. Well, you know, nobody in my family does this. Yeah. No, that is just you trying to let go off your own ego. That is simply, I don't want to feel bad about not putting in the work, so I'm going to look for a scapegoat, my genetics, as to why I can't do it. People who do great things in this life, they don't worry about the odds. Nobody ever did anything amazing by playing the odds. How do you know what your protein should be? Download our app, put in your information, and the app will tell you. As far as the scientific literature, 1.6 to 2.4 grams per kilogram of lean body mass appears to maximize the protein synthetic response. Reverse dieting, how will BMR increase? How about metabolic adaptation? Please ask your question in a, like, it's not, the question doesn't make sense. I'm sorry. I would be happy to answer it. I can answer the BMR part. There's no evidence that reverse dieting increases BMR more than overfeeding from another way. But I'm not so much worried about BMR because BMR is only one component of your total daily energy expenditure. So, for example, I just had a BMR test done after doing my reverse diet. I'm eating and maintaining my weight on 400 more calories than I was previously before I started the reverse diet. And my BMR only went up by like 40 calories a day. How is that possible? Well, I think what's happening is I'm able to train harder because I've got more food. So I'm training harder, expending more calories in my training session, and my NEAT has gone up. So I think I'm just fidgeting and moving more without realizing it. So some people would say, oh, see, reverse dieting doesn't work. Well, I don't really care. If I'm able to eat more calories and I'm not having to like consciously exercise more, I'll take that as a win regardless of how I get it. If calories or protein are in range in the app, is it reasonable to click compliant? For example, if you're low on fats and high on carbs. Listen, you can click compliant whenever you want, right? Like, you're an adult, you can do what you want. I would call that relatively compliant as long as they're close. But again, we talked about this before. If you are not seeing results and you're being all over the place, but you're kind of close, what does the accountability mirror say? Are you doing everything you can truly? Just keep that in mind. Some of you guys, I really want to answer the questions, but the questions don't make sense. If carbon has bottomed out my calories and I'm maxing out activity, where do I go out next? Should I cut creatine? Creatine is not going to cause you to like retain fat. If you cut out creatine, you're just losing lean body mass. If you want to just lose weight, I guess, sure, you could. But it sounds like you need a reverse diet or do a thorough accounting of like what foods you're eating. But I would say it might be time to reverse diet. You may not be in a position to lose fat right now, and that's okay. My man Larone, loving the app so far. My calories are lower, which I don't mind. Should I do more cardio, which I don't mind, to be able to eat more? Sure, you can. Just keep in mind there'll be a lag time in the app. So if you increase your cardio, The app will only raise calories if you start losing more weight, and then it'll raise calories. Best books to help understand all these concepts: metabolism, reverse dieting, etc. Well, I have a pretty damn good series of books like Fat Loss Forever and the Complete Reverse Dieting Guide that I would highly recommend, that you can get at the link in my bio at BioLane. If entering macros manually into Carbon Diet Coach, she's basically asking, does the coach still work? No. If you enter in custom macros, it turns the coach off. Be patient. Let the coach calculate your macros and then let it adjust them. 4 weeks, within 4 weeks, if you are compliant and log your weight daily, it will work. Is Fat Loss Forever in Spanish? Not yet. We're currently having it translated. Why is there not an option for a high-protein diet? Because every single diet on Carbon is a high-protein diet. That's it. That's the answer. I'm a beginner to fitness and hypertrophy training. Do you have any videos on books on the right way to start my fitness journey? As far as hypertrophy, highly recommend Brad Schoenfeld's books. You can find him at Brad Schoenfeld. Is saturated fat and red meat dominant diet still a risk factor for heart disease if maintaining other factors like exercise and caloric intake using Carbon? Okay, great question. So I used to be of the opinion that saturated fat was unfairly demonized and that did not contribute to heart disease, that was all just overeating energy. Based on recent meta-analyses and recent Mendelian randomization trials, I can no longer hold that opinion. I think saturated fat is definitely, in my opinion, an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease, because it has been shown linear increases in saturated fat lead to linear increases in LDL cholesterol. LDL cholesterol can penetrate the endothelium, which causes inflammation into the area, which leads to cardiovascular disease. Now, I don't want to fearmonger it. If you're not like, oh my God, never eat saturated fat. You can have some saturated fat, just like be reasonable with it. Don't be like guzzling down bacon and butter and shit like some of these morons on social media. So basically, the reason people get this confused is because they say, well, it's all about the HDL to LDL ratio. Like Paul Saladino, his dumbass. He says, well, it's all about the HDL to LDL ratio. Well, the problem with that is if you look at the research data and you look at the Mendelian randomization trials and you look at the trials in drug trials, drugs that increase HDL do not lower cardiovascular disease risk. And in people, so Mendelian randomization trials are basically where they look at people over the course of a lifetime and stratify them based on their genetics into like high or low secretors of different things. So some people naturally secrete high HDL. Some people naturally secrete low HDL. And they can stratify them based on what's called Mendelian randomization and look at, okay, what risk factors do they have over the course of their life? And basically, when you stratify people based on HDL, there doesn't appear to be a protective effect of HDL on cardiovascular disease. However, when you stratify based on LDL, there is almost a linear risk of heart disease with LDL levels. So there's a mechanism, there's animal research to support it, there's human data to support it, there's statin trial data to support it. Now here's where people get it messed up. And somebody like Saladino, who loves to cherry pick research, will say, well, look at the Minnesota coronary experiment where, they had people eat high saturated fat diets or low saturated fat diets, and they didn't see any difference, or actually they saw people like die a little faster in the low saturated fat group. Well, that study was only a couple of years, and when you are dealing with cardiovascular disease, what you are looking at is a lifetime exposure risk, okay? High saturated fat diet versus low saturated fat diet is not going to be the difference between what kills you today and what kills you 6 months from now. It's going to be the difference between what kills you at age 68 versus age 72. That's what you're looking at the difference of. Now, a great way to explain this is looking at interest rates, okay? If I have two people and have them do identical investments, right? And let's say one person gets 6% and the other person gets 7%. If I go back and I have them invest $10,000 or $50,000, let's say, starting at age whatever, 30. And I go back 2 years later and I look at the differences, there's not going to be much difference between the two because it's only 1% difference in interest rate. But because interest compounds, if you look 30 years later, there's going to be a massive difference. And this is how LDL works as a risk factor. People go, well, I went on a low saturated fat diet, at age 45 and I had a heart attack at age 52. Therefore, well, they didn't tell you that they ate tons of saturated fat leading up to that. Their LDL was sky high most of their life. It is a lifetime exposure risk. Lifetime. And that's what you got to keep in mind. So again, I used to be on the other side of this. I used to say exactly what Paul Saladino said. I used to say it was HDL to LDL ratio, saturated fat was unfairly demonized, this and that. But after seeing the latest data within the last 5 years, I have adjusted my view on it because I simply cannot hold that opinion in good conscience because it is not supported by the data. Tell us how you feel about Paul Saladino. I probably pick on him a little bit, but I just don't like people who cherry pick and then debate in bad faith. I just don't like people who cherry pick and debate in bad faith and who aren't intellectually honest. And I did a big breakdown of his appearance on the Joe Rogan podcast. Over almost 300 citations I put in there, almost 50 pages. And his response to that was to not address any single one of my criticisms, not one. It was to basically say that he thought I was a jealous hater and then psychoanalyze me to basically say that there must be something wrong with me because I spent that much time on him or something like that. So again, I did not criticize him as a person. I criticized his claims and used scientific literature to support my claims about his claims because a lot of people do follow him and listen to the Joe Rogan podcast, obviously. And there was a lot of misinformation, a lot of BS. And so I thought it was worthwhile to break that down. And again, so I addressed his claims. He did not address any of my criticisms. He only addressed me as a person. So to me, that says something about somebody. But again, if people like Paul Saladino, they're probably going to think I'm an asshole anyway. So not much I can do about that. EV King, my wedding is in October. I want to build a little lean muscle and then cut down. Okay, rant. There is no such thing as lean muscle. Compared to what? Fat muscle? Muscle's always lean. Sorry, it's not just you. A lot of people say that, but I just want to clarify that there is no such thing other than lean muscle. Muscle is only lean. But colloquially, I understand what you're saying. What phases should I follow with build cut in terms of weeks in each phase? You should, if you wanted to build significant muscle, you probably should have been doing it, for the last year beforehand. Muscle building is a very, very slow process. Now, I'm not saying you can't build any lean body mass between now and then. You certainly can. But if your wedding is in October, that means, let me just do a real quick, just checkaroo here. 1 second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I mean, we're like 18 weeks away from your wedding, basically. And some change, depending on when it is. If you want to lose significant fat, you're probably going to need, a good, 6 to 10 weeks. depending on how much fat you want to lose. I mean, I think you guys got to realize you guys way overestimate what you can do in 12 weeks, and then you drastically underestimate what you can do in 10 years. If you guys were just consistent, but since you asked, I will answer. I would probably start, hopefully you've been trying to build already. I'd maybe do another 6 weeks of that, if that, maybe 4 weeks. Then I would cut, get to your ideal body fat, and I would reverse diet into your wedding, because what you don't want to do is head into your wedding on the end of a really long diet, feeling depleted, feeling hungry, with your maintenance calories very low, and then go into a situation where there's a lot of food at your wedding, and then there's a lot of food on your honeymoon, and blow up afterwards, which a ton of people do, and that's how most people do it. So I'd recommend actually being ready, 8 weeks ahead of time, and then reverse dieting into your wedding so that you can have more food, you can have more flexibility, that sort of thing. But you probably won't do it, because most people don't do it, because most people are impatient AF, and they just care about right now. They end up sacrificing what they want most for what they want right now. So I would challenge you to try and think differently and behave differently. Oh, you had surgery and recovered for 6 weeks. Well, you should regain it back pretty quickly. So maybe do 6 weeks, because it should come back really quickly. And then, do a cut, and then hopefully reverse diet in for maybe another 6 weeks. Let's see here. Been a while since we got one off Facebook. Let's see here. Is it better to have a period of maintenance after being on a cut or go straight into a reverse diet? Or can you go straight into a reverse diet? Certainly you can. And a good reverse diet, a conservative reverse diet, will start at maintenance calories in the app anyway. So it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. If you want a reverse diet, I would say just jump straight into a reverse diet. No, muscle weighs more. That's actually not true. If you have a pound of muscle and a pound of fat, they both weigh the same thing. Now, density may be different, but that is a different quality than weight. Hey, Dan, I don't see your question. Oh, hang on. I kind of already answered that with Lerone, Dan. Let's see here. I had an unexpected diet break this last weekend. While my weight is readjusting due to water, do I mark compliant or non-compliant? That's up to you. I would say that if your weight is really far out of range and you truly believe it's water, you can mark non-compliant. But for the most part, I don't recommend fiddling around with that. Will you be coming out with a lactose-free protein powder? So our protein powder is 100% whey protein isolate and should be pretty devoid of lactose. You should be fine. If you put on muscle and lose fat, you won't weigh more. Well, it depends on how much muscle you put on and how much fat you lose. If you put on 1 pound of muscle, but you lose 2 pounds of fat, you will weigh less. I feel like maybe you don't understand how density works or weight, but I think that you're asking about tomatoes and I'm talking about apples. Recommended amount of fiber during a cut. In general, we recommend 14 grams per 1,000 calories. East Coast anglers. Is that like fishing? Because I love fishing. Been cutting for 5 months. At what point do you start reverse dieting? I'm down 20 pounds and 2 pounds shy from my goal. I mean, you can reverse diet whenever you want. If you're still feeling good and you aren't feeling like super run down and hungry and tired, then I would say keep trucking. But if you're feeling like crap, you're having trouble being adherent, maybe at least take a diet break or something like that. Awesome. Where do you guys fish out of? Is that your company? I would take me out sometime. When you try to use your clout to get free fishing trips. What a scumbag. No company, just a fun account. Gotcha. My friend claims to eat only 800 calories and can't lose fat. Your friend has never had the experience of weighing every single piece of food she puts in her mouth. Yes, there are people who can eat a low amount of calories and have trouble losing fat, but at a certain point, it becomes physiologically impossible, because literally, if you were eating that little amount of calories and not losing weight, then somehow that means your body is creating matter out of nothing. And that just does not happen. So here's the horrible truth that nobody wants to hear. People are horrible at estimating their calorie intake. There was a study where they took people who were self-reported weight loss resistant, and their average calorie intake that they reported was 1,200 calories per day. How many calories do you guys think, throw up a vote, they reported 1,200 calories. How many calories on average do you think that they actually consumed when the researchers tracked them? I'll wait about 20 seconds for you all to put your votes in. How many calories do you guys think that those people actually ate, even though they reported 1,200? 2,000, 2,600, 2,500, 3,700. Over 2,000 calories per day. Not only that, they overreported their activity by 50%. This isn't the only thing people do this with. The average person underreports the amount of debt they have by 150%. Not only do they lie with this stuff, they lie to themselves. You lie to yourself. Think about in your life how many times you honestly, you don't have to tell me, but just have this internal discussion. How many times have you lied to yourself about stuff to make yourself feel better? Everyone has done it. Everyone. So, of course they do this. Even dietitians underreport their caloric intake by 200 calories per day. Okay? And this can feel really attacking to people because, like, well, you're calling me a liar. No, I just think you're really terrible at estimating your intake. Like, you're just really terrible at estimating. They go, well, I had a salad, and they're like, well, salad's lettuce, so it must be 20 calories. And it was lettuce and bacon and nuts and ranch dressing, and it was actually 1,000 calories. And they thought they had 100. Or they look at their they'll have a bowl of ice cream, and they'll be like, yeah, that was a serving. That was 150 calories. Have you ever weighed out a serving of ice cream? Anybody ever weighed out an actual serving of ice cream? It's fucking depressing. Ever weighed out a serving of cereal? Ever weighed out a serving of peanut butter? Depressing. Most people, they just grab it and they go, they're like, oh yeah, that was a serving. No, it was more like 3 or 4. So, yeah, most people are horrible estimators. And so just to give you guys a little bit more insight of this for the researchers, the subjects actually argued with the researchers about what they were consuming. They were still convinced that they were eating 1,200 calories a day, even though the researchers literally measured it. The other thing too is a lot of people do volume measures. They'll be like, oh yeah, a tablespoon or a cup or whatever. I had one lady who messaged me and she was like, I'm eating 1,600 calories a day, can't lose weight. And it turns out she was doing volume measurements. I said, go weigh it out in grams and let me know what you're eating. She thought she was eating 1,600 calories a day. She was eating 2,650. Also, and I don't want to make people like super paranoid about this, go weigh some of your slices of bread sometimes. Go weigh out some of the things you take for granted. You're not eating as little as you think. But the good news is that means that your metabolism isn't broken and that you're not eating, 1,000 calories a day and not losing weight. So it's actually good news. Because if you're eating 1,000 calories a day, not losing weight, that shit would suck. Actually, my rice packets are all 20 grams off. It's the worst. Even like prepackaged stuff, like protein bars and stuff. Cupcake servings are the worst. You know what I found that was like really bad is donuts. Oh my God. Holly brought home some of these donuts, right? And like I pulled it out and I did this experiment. Like, okay, I'm going to do what I think it is, right? And so I kind of estimated like 50 grams of carbohydrate and like 22 grams of fat, something like that. One donut, these things were so freaking dense. One donut, 100 grams of carbohydrate and 45 grams of fat. Now, how many people would look at that and they would just like look up a Krispy Kreme or something like that and be like, oh yeah, it's 250 calories. You're not eating as little as you think. Well, that's the other thing is labels can be off as well. But typically, typically if they're off, it's still consistent. So guilty. It's almost 1,000 calories. I know, bro. She was like, "Oh, you're not going to eat that whole donut?" I was like, "Hell no! I'd rather have some ice cream. This thing is ridiculous." It was pretty good though. How dare you disrespect donuts on National Donut Day? I'm sorry. I apologize. Please forgive me. All right, guys. Hey, I really enjoyed this. Hope you guys don't mind me getting up here and yelling. Again, I'm not angry. I'm just passionate. I apologize for, being so passionate and sometimes dropping some F-bombs. But hopefully, if you found your way here, you maybe like that sort of thing. So I don't know. All right. Guys, I hope you have a great one. If you have not heard of our app, it is Carbon Diet Coach, $9.99 per month. You can see all the testimonials from people saying it's an amazing app. It is an amazing app. I use it for my coaching. Just saying. And, it's honest to God. It's one of the things I'm most proud of because it really is an incredible value. And my wife, Holly, is doing a Road to Worlds challenge. She's competing in WBFF Worlds. Ladies, if you want to get inspired, make sure you go to @HollyTBaxter. Check out this challenge. You can sign up for it. You can be on Carbon Diet Coach and the Workout Builder, get all that stuff covered, and be in a private Facebook group where my wife is going to chat to you, answer your questions and whatnot. It's going to be awesome. So, guys, catch you next time. Hope you have a great, awesome, fantastic weekend. Catch you next time. Facebook, YouTube, y'all have a good one.